First oral question, Lord Lexton.
I beg leave to ask the question, standing in my name on the order paper.
The Minister, Barron.
My Lords, the National Trust is independent of the Government. Its activities are overseen by its board, the Charity Commissioner's regulator, and the scope of its work is set out in legislation. While it would be possible for the Government to review the National Trust Acts, we do not believe it would be a proportionate approach at this time and believe it should be, in the first instance, accountable for its activities to the Charity Commission as the Trust's regulator.
Lord Lexton.
My Lords, may I ask first whether the recent declaration by the Trust's Director of Volunteering that, and I quote, "At the National Trust we have a duty to play a part in creating a fairer, more equitable society," is compatible with the statutes under which the Trust operates. Was it not an act of folly, my Lord, for the Trust to rush out a tendentious report on slavery and colonialism, insulting the memory of Sir Winston Churchill in the process, in order to demonstrate its goodwill to a movement which is not interested in securing a deeper, more accurate understanding of colonialism in the past, but only in advancing an extremist political agenda in the present? My Lords, unless it changes course, is there not a danger that this important institution, admired by so many for so long, will forfeit the nation's trust?
Well, I would agree with my noble friend that the National Trust plays a unique part in our society with over 5.5 million members. But our position on all charities, including the National Trust, is that they must pursue their primary charitable purpose, which in the case of the National Trust is on protecting and preserving our heritage for the nation.
Lord Robotham.
On that last point, I'd like to bring my noble friend's attention to. This is a very much loved institution, and many of my close family and parents have been members. I confess I have not. But I've visited endless historic houses and walked innumerable miles over the coastline of moorland that the Trust looks after so well. And indeed, I contributed to Operation Neptune half a century ago. I applaud Hilary McGrady, whose desire to open up Divis Mountain, where I've watched birds many years ago, looking down on the drab housing estates of West Belfast. But something has gone badly wrong. Why are curators of real expertise being sacked? And yet we have a curator of repurposing historic houses. There's infantilisation of going around these houses. Now, so I would ask the Minister if she would let us have a look at the Acts, which allow the Director General to be paid nearly £200,000 a year, while pursuing an agenda which seems to me to be out of tune with its fundamental purpose.
As I said in my opening remarks, the National Trust is an independent charity, and rightly so, and therefore it is the responsibility of its trustees and council to oversee some of the points my noble friend raised.
To keep their questions brief. Baroness Berkeley of Kington. Lord.
My Lords, I think Lord Berkeley needs to unmute.
My Lords, I wonder if the Minister would agree that in order to approach equality, it's not just the Black Lives Matter that is of importance, but that we should keep some of the small venues open. After all, we're not just a nation of mansions. I do take the Minister's initial point, but I know that finances have meant that some of these smaller places are threatened. On the Black Lives Matter, may I just say that I completely feel that it's a question of presenting the facts and letting visitors decide for themselves. There should be no opinion or political aspect to that whatsoever.
And I think, in relation to the noble Lord's last point, the government would agree our position has been to retain and explain our houses and statues and other artefacts that represent our history. If I understood the earlier part of the Noble Lord's question correctly in relation to smaller properties, my understanding is the National Trust has no plans currently to permanently close any properties or reduce their commitment to the houses within their care.
Baroness Young of Allscombe.
Would the Minister acknowledge that the report commissioned by the National Trust, which has been referred to, simply sought to audit in a non-judgmental way its collections so that it can better provide contextual information to those viewing the collections? And can the Minister also confirm that he's aware that the National Trust has lost in excess of £200 million in income this year as a result of COVID? The NHS, the National Trust is the backbone of the tourism industry, which will be important in national post-COVID recovery. What is the government going to do to support the heritage charities, both large and small, to do that important job as part of the national recovery?
It may well have been the intention, I don't doubt for a second, that the National Trust was intending to audit its houses, but I think our view is the way in which it was done was unfortunate, and while the Trust may not have intended to cause offence, I think the feedback from both members and parliamentarians suggests that they did do so.
Baroness Bakewell of Hardington Manor, Manderville.
My Lords, the National Trust has fulfilled its charitable objectives over many decades. The country has benefited from both the preservation of cultural heritage and from the nature and beauty of its open spaces. Two of the greatest challenges of our age are tackling climate change and dementia. Would the Minister confirm that the National Trust agreement with the Alzheimer's Society to make their places dementia friendly alongside their zero emissions target of 2030 are great steps forward?
I wasn't aware of the specific initiative with the Alzheimer's Society to which the Noble Lady refers, but I'm very happy to share her positive remarks in relation to both.
Baroness Hayter.
I am an enthusiastic member of the National Trust, and I was delighted that they spent £7 million at Chartwell on the legacy of Churchill. But surely the Minister would agree that a mature debate on our nation's history, which recognises the complex backgrounds of our lands, our country houses, of our statues, can only be good to understand the real history of the whole of our country.
Yeah. I think those views were set out clearly by my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, when he wrote to all the arm's-length bodies earlier this year, when he talked about history being ridden with moral complexity and the need to understand that. I think the question in this case is about the primary charitable purpose that the National Trust is pursuing.
My Lords, the National Trust has become something of a national monopoly, at least in the country house market, and that largely due to the very large endowment of properties given to it by the state over the years in lieu of tax. So would my noble friend agree to undertake an assessment of the benefits that might accrue from splitting it into two or more organisations with a view to encouraging competition and to increasing the variety of visitor experience, which is, I think I can fairly say, has become rather samey?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint my noble friend, but we have no plans currently to do such a review. The National Trust conducts its own governance review every 10 years, and any external review of their activities should be left to the Charity Commission.
Well, Bird.
I'd like to take a different angle on the National Trust. I have been approached by people who live in National Trust property, and I know that they have all sorts of plans to modernise the relationships between the staff and the tied cottages. And I know that in places they are medieval, very much like the buildings they have, and Victorian and Edwardian. And I would like to see the change made to the Act so that we can make sure that they are carrying out their social duty for social justice and not having a situation where the tenants are living in the past while the big landlord, the National Trust, is riding high on the hog.
The Noble Lord makes an interesting point, and I'm sure that the trustees of the National Trust will, I hope, be reading Hansard and picking up on his remarks.
My Lords, I regret the time allowed for this question has